Hello. So yesterday I was working on a video about Jinx from Arcane. I had recorded it and then I happened to get recommended this video by Schnee that just came out, and yeah, it kind of said everything I was intending to say but in much better words. So scrap that video. Schnee is as ever leading the way in the Arcane space, so let's build on his ideas instead. He raised a lot of good questions in a video where he mainly talks about this line from episode 3 of season 2.
I'm glad it's you. Had to be you.
And he was talking about why it had to be her. What did Jinx mean by that? Let's start with the overall discussion. We get a lot of hints around the idea of Jinx's death this season, wanting to watch everything burn, finish what was left of her family. Either literal death or in a more metaphorical sense, the idea of total destruction. She wanted to be able to sit in a powder chair back in season 1, but she didn't believe it was possible and so felt condemned, felt doomed to become this cursed Jinx destructive force that isn't good, basically. And Schnee argues that this is a narrative Jinx has about her life.
Jinx is a narrative. That is the Jinx story of total destruction. That is what has to happen to the Jinx character.
Which I completely agree with. This is how we tend to work as people. Imaginary Silco touches on it.
We build our own prisons. Bars forged of oaths, codes, commitments. We inhabit these cells, these identities, and call them us.
The fluids, often contradictory people we are is so damn confusing. The boundless potential we have is a nightmare of uncertainty, so we build much clearer, more rigid, easier to define stories about our lives and who we are. I think Imaginary Silco is actually suggesting Jinx doesn't have to be that, but that's not what Jinx takes from this conversation, even though this is her own brain talking. Jinx's narrative, in short, is that I am no good, I need to die, I need to be eradicated, until Isha interrupts that narrative.
Someone who had been watching the whole time, but who hadn't heard the narrative. She came in and she just shattered everything. She stopped the show.
I think this point also builds into the music as well. I think I talked about this back in my video on episode 2, how Jinx is literally walking oblivious to the world around her there. She is lost in her own song, lost in the music that sings I am already dead inside. Then Isha drops from the sky and literally interrupts the song. It's not a full interruption, the song does continue quietly in the background before kicking back in, but it is a great indicator to suggest that this story Jinx has of herself. Not only is it inaccurate, but it can be changed, it can be stopped. And then eventually in episode 9, the exact same thing happens, though more successfully this time. Jinx is once more lost in her song. The world is a wasteland, please let me go. Then Echo appears and again literally interrupts the music. He tells her to wait, he talks to her. Look, Schnee already did a better job discussing Easter than I was planning to do, but I do want to build on this all in two ways. Firstly, his video was recorded before Act 3 dropped, so we can look more clearly at where Isha's sacrifice does take Jinx in Act 3, and we can also talk more about Vi. That's the main point I want to get to. I know I've said this before, but the thing I found most tragic about Isha's sacrifice is just how joyful the music is. Just how wrapped up it all is in the triumph of Isha wanting to be this hero, the one she sees as an absolute hero, and how that costs her life. It is heroic, but it's also tragic, and I think this shot, Isha giving the finger guns, maybe this is conjecture, but I feel like that's her trying to tell Jinx just how much she looks up to her, how much of an inspiration she is, how much she means to her. I think it's her way of saying Jinx is a hero and is worthy of being saved. Isha was happy to make that sacrifice for her. She smiles. She's kind of doing what Jinx does for Isha in episode 4 when Vander first attacks, but of course, that's not how Jinx feels about it. And this will be a super important point later on, but Isha makes a sacrifice out of love, and Jinx then feels worse. I mean, of course she does. It's a massive, massive loss. The one person she felt able to protect is gone. It's grief. Episode 5 and 6, I think, are Jinx at her peak in terms of embracing the potential to build and to see herself in a different light, to change this narrative and this song. But then Isha's loss rocks her again. Arguably it takes Jinx right back to where we started, and this is the awful irony of Jinx's arc. She talks in episode 8 about killing herself to break the cycle, but that very act, this killing of herself, means returning to the same cycle, the same view of herself, the same self-destructive prison. Episodes 5 and 6 were where she almost broke the cycle, changed the narrative. My pet theory is that Silco talking about the need to walk away,
I think the cycle only ends when you find the will to walk away.
that meant exactly what we see of alternate reality Silco, someone who has just walked away from the based violence and instead resolved conflicts, sought unity with Vander. But Jinx isn't doing that. She took walking away to mean walking away from life, and she's actually doing the exact same thing Victor is, which is removing the conflict, eradicating the differences that create conflict, rather than actually resolving them. And as we saw with Victor, that isn't finding peace, that's not achieving harmony or unity, it's just fields of boundless solitude. Isha seemed like hope, an example of who Jinx could be. Here's a good version of my younger self, so it is possible for me to change, but then she dies. And now it takes Echo, the person who can literally tell Jinx that there are good versions of her.
There's no good version of me.
Who can show her a device made with Jinx's own monkey toys as proof of who she could be. That's the moment to actually break the cycle. But we haven't talked about Vi, we need to talk about Vi. So, Schnee makes this point perfectly in his video. Jinx feels there is no good version of herself, she needs to die, and the reason it has to be Vi is in order to psychologically kill who Vi is, destroy her entire motivation, which has been to protect her little sister. And Jinx is compelled to do that, whether she thinks it's good or not, because that's what Jinx is. She is doomed to destruction.
She had to kill Vi, either actually or existentially. If Vi the Protector is forced to murder her own little sister, the one person she swore to protect, that is killing what Vi is.
Which I agree with, but I don't think it's the only motivation. I think we can build on this, and I think we can shed more light on the entire Jinx arc by going through all of this in order. Some of this might sound tenuous at first, or half repeat points we've already touched on, but bear with me. Season 1, Vi never gives up on Powder. But of course, Jinx isn't Powder anymore, she's Jinx. And the fact Vi is unable to see that breaks Jinx's heart. If she, even my sister, can't accept me for the person I've become and all of the bad I've done, then it's all hopeless. I can't be loved. I'm awful. I might as well lean into that, all these same destructive impulses. And secondly, there's Caitlyn, who Jinx sees as the replacement Powder. Which fundamentally isn't true, by the way. That's just how Jinx feels about it. It's one or the other. So Jinx wants Vi to pick her over Caitlyn, which means Caitlyn needs to die. It's one or the other. Again, just like Victor, by the way. One side needs eradicating so the other can replace it, and Vi won't do that. She won't pick between the two because that's not how it has to be. However, for Jinx, that feels like she hasn't been picked, that Vi won't accept me. I'm not the one who gets that place. So again, I can't be loved, it's all hopeless, lean into destruction. And there's a lot of reasons why Jinx fires that bomb. I think a lot of them have been discussed in other people's videos, but one reason I want to add, a typical interpretation I'd make as a therapist, is that she'll do something that will force Vi to see how bad I am. This is often a dynamic that goes on in therapy sessions with kids who feel a lot of shame. They believe they are bad, so when they see you believing in them, it at first becomes a conflict. They become very, very eager to prove you wrong, to show you, no, I am bad, you've got to see how bad I am. You're going to see it one day, you're going to give up on me one day, so here, see that now, let's make it clear, let's get it over and done with. Either we're going to kid ourselves with some idealistic Rosie returning to the kids we used to be, or it's over, you need to give up. And by Schnee's argument, this is existentially killing Vi. This is that same moment. This is forcing her to give up on the one thing that defines her. But doing it not just because she's doomed to destruction, in my opinion, it's also because she cannot allow her sister to waste herself chasing after a hopeless cause. Yeah, Vi then does pretty much give up. Season 2 Vi is so passive and numb at first. She finds herself agreeing with Caitlyn. She ends up doing things deep down that she doesn't want to do, which is join the Enforcers, use the Grey on her home, and go on a mission to kill her sister. Personally, I don't think she ever wants to kill her sister. I think she just feels like it has to happen, it has to end. She is consciously trying to make herself give up on her sister, which is kind of what Jinx wanted. Yes, we prove our fears correct whilst also lamenting that confirmation, but there is a difference. I don't think Jinx was expecting her sister to become an enforcer and unleash the Grey on their old home. I think that shocks her. To see Vi becoming bad? Wanting to kill me is one thing, that makes sense, I'm awful, but this? Why, Vi? Why? And I think the obvious conclusion you might make is that this is Caitlyn's influence. Caitlyn is turning my sister bad, but I don't think that's what happens. Here's my tenuous little theory. It's that Jinx blames herself. She made Vi worse because she's a curse. Jinx cursed her. In the same way Powder made young Vi angry, made her abandon her. It was all my fault. I'm the core reason Vi has turned into the person she has become. I think this is why she talks about finishing off what's left of her family. They've both become bad people and therefore both need eradicating. They'll go out in a blaze of glory and then all this paint will celebrate their end. If it was just about Jinx's death, I don't think she would fight back so hard. They both need to die. However, Vi wins the fight, and yes, this is a secondary point. If one of them had to win, it had to be her. It should be her, because I'm the curse, I'm the one who sent us down these paths. And yes, of course, more so it had to be Vi who kills Jinx. Why? Because that would signal Vi truly giving up on her, truly letting go, truly making this choice she refused to at the end of Season 1, Caitlyn over Jinx. I don't think that's just existentially killing Vi for the sake of destruction, I think it's a very Silco death for the sake of rebirth. Free her sister from the Jinx curse. When her life is no longer defined by saving her little sister, she will be free. You know, I honestly doubt Vi was going to kill her regardless. I think pushed to the brink she'd have hesitated until Caitlyn then fired the shot, and that Vi would have regretted that. But again, it's this same choice but from the other perspective, and again, Vi does not choose one or the other. She wouldn't kill Caitlyn for Jinx, she now won't kill Jinx for Caitlyn, she will prevent the shot. Very interesting parallel, and a signal that the Vi she once loved is still there, that her sister isn't so bad as she was starting to believe, that not all hope is lost for Jinx, and plus, of course, Isha saves her. Starts Jinx on a path of helping to believe in the good of herself, that she can do good, can cultivate some good, can even nurture a good version of Powder in this girl. So she does then start believing again in the possibility of her family uniting, rather than needing to be finished. Especially because Caitlyn's out of the equation now. Caitlyn's off fighting a war alongside Ambessa, where Vi is back here on her own in the Undercity where she belongs. Plus there's Vander, so maybe we can all pick up where we once left off. Maybe it can be me over Caitlyn. Almost. Isha does die, and it does again leave Jinx hating herself, but not hating Vi. Not this time. In the aftermath of Isha's death, what does she do? She fights like hell to save her sister, gives everything to get her to safety, and then once that's done, once that's complete, she just surrenders. Gives up. Relents to rotting away in prison until maybe Caitlyn will execute her or something. Why? Well, it's splitting, essentially. The thing I talk about in a lot of my videos, the one good and the one bad. Vi is that one good thing. You know, Isha was a one good thing too, but Isha was also a little Powder. She was partly symbolic of Jinx, the potential for a good version of Jinx, but she died, there is no good version of me. However, Vi is still Vi. She's the other side. She's the projection, really. There's no good in me, but I'll project that semblance of it, that hope onto this outer external figure. I'll fight for her. If I can save that, then I'll have done something. Then I'll be ready to die. Preserve the good side to eradicate the bad. The situation is again exactly the same. Vi needs to give up on me because the more she follows me, the more I drag her down. However, now it is all framed as a positive sacrifice, an Isha-style sacrifice. Well, not exactly, but I am the bad that has to die in order for my good sister to live.
You don't need to feel guilty about being happy. You deserve to be with her.
You know, she says this after Vi has again fought to reach Jinx and wants to be with her, wants to unite, and Jinx recognises...
You're never gonna give up on me, are you?
And if she won't give up, if she wouldn't even give up when Vi tried her hardest to do just that, then I'll have to do it for her. Which, again in terms of cycles, does bring us back to Season 1, where she does want Vi to choose between her or Caitlyn. However, this time Jinx forces her to choose Caitlyn, and hopes that in making that decision herself, it will absolve Vi of any guilt about choice.
You don't need to feel guilty about being happy. You deserve to be with her.
Will allow her to be much more free, but Jinx is fundamentally wrong again. It is not a choice between the two. There are good versions of Jinx. This sacrifice will not demonstrate to Vi how worthy she is of life, will not leave her feeling liberated, just like Isha's sacrifice didn't do that for Jinx. What it will do instead is cripple her sister with grief. But we could resolve the conflict. One side need not replace the other. Victor was absolutely wrong about that, and so is Jinx. If you want to free your sister from the burden and the guilt of trying to save you, you do that by saving yourself. However, again, it doesn't feel possible for Jinx. She doesn't think it can be done, and therefore feels like this is her only option. And where Caitlyn was a rival to compete with, now she's kind of a relief, I think, to Jinx. An indicator that Jinx can just go, can just be replaced. Vi will be fine, which again isn't how it works. The tragedy is how trapped she feels within her own mindset, and like Jace for Victor, it requires Echo's interruption to see that. In a nutshell, that's my theory. That's my answer to the questions posed by Schnee, but I might be wrong here, especially when you consider Jinx's ending, because Jinx does still make a sacrifice in order to free Vi. That's exactly what she does in both a literal sense, freeing her from the weight, and the metaphorical sense that Vi is now free to be in a relationship with Caitlyn. And, you know, if my interpretation is correct, then I really don't like this plot point. It's the one and only story decision in this entire phenomenally good show that doesn't sit right with me. I feel like when so much of this story has been about Jinx not believing in herself, don't let it end that way. Don't let her give into this whole replacement mindset. And don't let me believe that it doesn't matter how much Echo rewound time and tried to save her, she was always doomed to this fate. I don't like that. And yeah, I know, there are theories to suggest that Jinx survived. To be honest, I believe that theory. I believe she flew off in this blimp at the end, but the show doesn't concretely show us that, and doesn't portray a feeling of hope and optimism there. What we know is that even if Jinx survived, she doesn't tell her sister she has, she just goes away. Again, feeling that she has to not be there in order for Vi to be free, that it does have to be either her or Caitlyn. I'd quite happily have a scene where Jinx says goodbye to Vi and flies off in this blimp because she wants to find something else, but not this kind of disguised death option. Especially because Jinx's fall comes again with this song. Like, she's gone right back to it. Like, nothing has changed in her arc. I suppose you could argue this is Jinx getting to redo the very moment she so tragically got wrong as Powder, that it's positive in that sense, but it certainly doesn't feel that way to me. I think the idea she feels she should have to sacrifice herself to make up for something that happened as a child is an unsettling one. You know, it is probably just me. It's probably because I'm a therapist and I want a more positive conclusion than we get, but those are my thoughts. That maybe Jinx's narrative has all been one about eradicating the bad in order to free the good, and if so, it's not a narrative she is ever quite able to change. And that does feel tragic. So let me know if I'm wrong. I kind of hope that I am. Comment all your thoughts, good or bad. I'm going to add an extra thought as a pinned comment down below that I wanted to share. Otherwise, like the video, subscribe, maybe even support me on Patreon, buy me a coffee, or check out my second channel, but otherwise, hopefully see you next time. And as ever, a special thank you goes to Flying Spider, Grace, Kellyanne Davidson, Luke Hoare, Michael Gallagher, Chad Bramwell, and Joshua C. Follier. Thank you.